trust anyone in the political class or the media class for that matter either. But when they admit things that are like very against their interest to admit and kind of give away the whole game that now they're pretending doesn't matter.
Are you sure whether it's the CIA or Mossad that it isn't just if they say something that you happen to want to be the case?
Wait, what do you mean? So primary sources are irrelevant if I disagree and it makes my position indefensible? What is the argument from Douglas Murray here? What the Yo, Dave is not even like the most well-read on this shit, and I'm sure he would openly and readily admit that. And he's already cooking them. To be fair, it is an indefensible position. Defending Israel is so fucking difficult. If you have a moral compass, you don't really need much information, but especially if you have information like Dave does, it literally becomes an impossible endeavor. You will always look like a monstrous animal.
Kind of like saying if I were to end on trial and I were to, like, I'm the prosecution and I'd enter into evidence a written confession by the defendant, and you go, well, are you only entering this in because this kind of goes along with your case? Like, I suppose we're all guilty of having these incentives to some degree, but I do think it's a relevant detail that the former defense secretary admitted this. And by the way, Netanyahu's admitted this, Ehud Barak has admitted this.
They admitted that they allowed funds to go from Qatar to Hamas because Hamas was governing the Gaza.
For the reason of preventing the establishment of a Palestinian state.
No, that was not the case.
That is what Netanyahu said. That is what Ehud Barak said. No, it's all
There's
up and down.
One claim.
Oh, well, you can't believe Benjamin Netanyahu. You can't believe him because it makes my argument look unsustainable. How dare you, sir? Why would you believe Benjamin Netanyahu? He did. He literally said that. He said, we can always deal with Hamas. The deliberate reasons as to why Israel played a formative role in propping up Hamas was because they made a somewhat correct prediction and a very incorrect one. But the correct prediction that they made was that, well, these guys are Islamist fundamentalists and they will never be able to get broad support from the Western world in the same way that like a guy like Ghassan Kanafani could, because he was a author and also Christian. They assassinated all of the secular socialist leadership of the Palestinian resistance, and they basically propped up the Islamist fundamentalist one, assuming that the Islamist fundamentalist group would never actually modify their position or moderate their position ever, right? Which they did. Hamas literally did do that, for the record, and has. And that's it. That's their mistake was, as long as we keep Hamas propped up, we can always deal with it militarily. Except that was a major mistake because you couldn't deal with it militarily on October 7. That's number one. And number two, they did become way more interested in, instead of just simply politically dominating the Gaza Strip, doing anything and everything in their power to end the occupation, including but not limited to creating coalitions with every other faction with the exception of the Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinian Authority is a part of the Israeli security apparatus. But virtually every faction, including former Fatah, that like not that long ago facilitated a coup d'etat against Hamas after the outcome of the election didn't go their way. So these guys are only invested in one thing and one thing only, which is the end of the occupation.
There's one recording of Netanyahu saying something along those lines. But look, I mean, we should get onto it.
I could read you the quotes from Ehud Barak as well.
No, I know.
It's all of them have talked about it.
The situation, let's get onto it. The situation there, and the war of the last 18 months now, more than 18 months in the Middle East, is a result not of that, but of Hamas deciding to start another war with Israel and trying to...
Hamas. It's Hamas's fault. It's Hamas.
But you don't think if they were being propped up by Israel, that has nothing to do with the group?
They were not being propped up by Israel. The reason why Hamas were in power, as you know, much against the interests of the Israelis, was that they were voted into power after the Israelis withdrew from Gaza in 2005. Condoleezza Rice and other American statesfolk insisted that the Palestinians should have elections straight after the Israeli withdrawal. They had elections, perhaps unwisely, and Hamas won.
Yeah. Ironically enough, Fatah told George W. Bush to not have elections because they were incredibly unpopular. Part of the reason why they were incredibly unpopular was because they were seen, understandably so, by the Palestinian population as collaborators with the Israeli state at that point, and also deeply corrupt. Hamas, on the other hand, given their Islamist fundamentalist background at that stage especially, and their interest in militarily resisting the apartheid state, were seen as less corruptible forces amongst the Palestinian population that chose to vote in the Gaza Strip. Even with all of that, however, Hamas actually won the election, I believe, by like 3%. So it wasn't like a wide popular majority. They didn't have the popular mandate at the time in Gaza. What came afterwards was then an additional fuck-up of George W. Bush's administration, where they said, okay, let's go do a coup d'etat and forcibly overtake the Gaza Strip and give the administrative capacity of the Gaza Strip to the party that didn't actually win. Well, lo and behold, Hamas actually won that battle and took complete control over the Gaza Strip. Yeah, they only won a plurality, not even a majority. They won, no, it wasn't 48%. It was not. I think it was like 36% or something. And the Fatah party had like 32% or something. I'm getting the numbers wrong. But it was the plurality. Oh, it was 44 to 41? 44 to 41. Anyway, none of this matters. The population that's alive currently could not have even voted at the time. And the election in and of itself is completely inconsequential because Israel did not exactly stop its apartheid activities in the West Bank, nor its complete restriction of everyday existence for the Palestinians in Gaza.
Didn't have another election again and ruled the Gaza for 18 years until they finally got the great fruit of their labors on the 7th of October 2023 and around southern Israel massacring everyone they could, including young people at a dance party, and then caused in turn the destruction of the place that they were meant to be governing. It's the whole thing is a great tragedy, and all of it is at the feet of Hamas.
I certainly agree with you that it's a great tragedy, and I do, I think it's when you accuse me of using the quotes that kind of, back up what I believe, I think it's very convenient here to remove all responsibility from the Israelis. Like, even if I'm telling you that you have these quotes, I mean, I'm not talking about fringe figures. We could read.
I don't even agree with, like, Hamas was propped up by Benjamin Netanyahu arguments either. Like, even that in and of itself is not the whole picture. It's 75 years of apartheid and occupation that started at the inflection point with an ethnic cleansing campaign where 15,000 Palestinians were exterminated and 750,000 Palestinians were forcibly removed from their ancestral homes, never to be able to return. That is the Nakba. That is how the Israeli state was implemented. That is the inception of the Israeli state. They did horrifying war crimes during the Nakba. Yeah, but we talking about Hamas? Yeah, but it doesn't matter because before Hamas, there was a PLO. They called them the terrorists. There's always a group that is going to resist because resistance is inevitable. Would you sit back and get over? Would you sit back and watch your family members get murdered? Probably not, right? The idea that this is just Hamas is idiotic. The Palestinian resistance against the Zionist brigades initially, some of which were direct terror groups, they called themselves terrorists, and then the Israeli occupying force is perfectly valid, completely valid, through and through. It is the moral thing to do. It's ridiculous. Anyone who tells you that it is immoral that they resisted is delusional. They just do not see the Palestinians as people. That's the point. What the are we talking about? Yeah, sorry. Oh, are you raping us to death? Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize the rest of the world would not see us as humans, so I guess I should just die.
But hold on, let me just say, so if you're going to tell me Israel props up this terrorist organization in order to kill the peace process, in order to make sure that the international community gives them a no one. By the way, Smotrich, right, the finance minister, okay, he's on record saying, look, Hamas is an asset. The Palestinian Authority, they're the liability. Hamas is an asset because then we can tell the international community, well, look, what do you want us to do? There's a terrorist organization here. We can't do business with them. And then even Ehud Barak admitted like this was also so that liberal Israelis, if it was the Palestinian Authority, they'd be like, hey, we should make a deal with them. But since it's Hamas, they can't. Okay, so if Israel props up this terrorist organization and then as a response to them committing a horrific act of terrorism, decides to level the entire place and just slaughter women and children in large numbers.
It didn't decide to do that, and it didn't do that. But yeah.
It didn't level the place. Hasn't been destroyed.
Gaza is pretty leveled by now.
Yeah.
But it did not go in to level the place like that. No.
Okay, they went in and leveled.
Oh, so they just like slipped and fell into genocide. Fuck, man. That's a great take, Douglas. You are doing a fantastic job. Yeah, so when the Israeli defense minister at the time, who is no longer the Israeli defense minister, but it's still very much a war criminal for this statement, amongst many other actions that he took, on October 8th said, "We are fighting human animals. That is precisely the reason why we will cut off